Hello and welcome to In Focus. I'm Aaron Gooch, and on this week's episode of Inside BU, we're talking about Carver Hall. Now, Carver Hall is one of the biggest landmarks that Bloomsburg University has to offer. So with this week's program, we're going to take you from the very beginning to where it is today. Check it out.
Carver Hall, the oldest building on campus. The building dates back to the idea of Henry Carver, who came to Bloomsburg from New York State in 1866. Carver opened up the Bloomsburg Literary Institute in the old Academy building on West 3rd and Jefferson Street. He was in charge of the school in town, but he knew that facilities were not good enough to have a permanent school in Bloomsburg. So Carver presented his idea for a new building to the trustees and said that he could build it for $15,000. He eventually raised the money and the construction began. He was the designer, the contractor, and eventually the Bloomsburg Literary Institute had to hire a new teacher to teach while Carver himself was supervising the construction of the building. Then on April 3rd and 4th, there was a 2-day dedication ceremony which involved a procession from the old academy downtown to the new Institute Hall on top of the hill. Within the next week, enrollment jumped from just 40 students to 120. The next year, in 1867, Bloomsburg Literary Institute became Bloomsburg State Normal School for teacher education.
One interesting feature that actually was added onto Institute Hall in 1887 was the fact that there was a second floor bridge or passageway that led from Institute Hall to the classroom building for the model school, the training school on campus. You could actually go through most of the campus without having to go outside. And so the bridge was there until the summer of 1939 when it was removed. And there's really no trace of it being there. If you look at the building, you will not see really evidence that there had been a passageway from there into another building.
Carver Hall was used as the main classroom building for a number of years. The first floor was all classrooms and the second floor was the auditorium. As the school grew over the years, the building had changed, and in 1891 the university put in a balcony in the auditorium along with permanent opera seating. In May of 1867, a 1-ton bell was hoisted and placed in the tower on top of what is today Carver Hall. Since Carver was the first thing the public would see when they entered the town, the university wanted it to be much more impressive, so in the summer of 1900 they built the tower which exists today. They modified the front porch and it really added to the overall integrity of the building, giving it a much more profound look. In 1954, they decided that they would permanently illuminate the dome on top of the building as a memorial for the students who lost their lives in World War II. The dome was originally a copper dome, which, when the copper eventually oxidized, it became green and stayed that way for a number of years. It was then painted silver, and then 30 years later, in 1984, it was painted its current color, gold. The auditorium was always used for commencement ceremonies up until the final ceremony there in 1967. Since then, the auditorium has been used for plays, concerts, and other affairs. The original opera chairs were removed in the 1960s and replaced by new chairs. In 1992, the current red chairs found in the auditorium were added, and the auditorium was completely remodeled and named after Kenneth Gross, who was a member of the trustees. So Carver's idea for a new building to cement Bloomsburg as a permanent school still stands today and serves as a symbol of Bloomsburg University being the oldest and most impressive looking building on campus.